Hey everyone, me Kevin here. This is my breakdown of the notes that I took during RNC Night 1. This is not from like some article I just read. I watched it, I took notes, and this is what I'm going to share with you. I'm going to talk about what Republicans said, and then at the end I'll share some Democrats' reactions. Now, I'm not going to go through what every single person said. I'm just going to go through some of the highlights. And if at any point during this video you feel like you need life insurance, know there's a link down below and you could sign up in as little as 5 minutes. You could also get 2 free stocks while you're down there. In as little as 5 minutes, you deposit $100 with Webull, you get 2 free stocks. That promotion ends at the end of the month. Okay, RNC, Night 1. First, we began with Ronna McDaniel. She sort of set the stage. She began by saying, hey, I'm a real housewife, unlike the TV housewives the Democratic National Convention use. And so, obviously, we began the night with the classic sort of expected targeted attacks. And that is exactly how she continued. She said that Democrats want to defund the police, only want to elect Biden because they think he's a nice guy. She thinks that Democrats will give 82% of Americans a tax raise, and that's not nice. Abortion up to the point of birth is not nice. And says that Trump is tough on China because he's tough for the American people, or tough on behalf of the American people. Herschel Walker endorsed Trump. Vernon Jones, a Georgia Democrat, says we're stuck in their mental plantation. He's a Republican and he's black. And when he said that, I thought that actually painted a very interesting portrait of his opinion of having switched from being a Democrat to becoming a Republican, and how he felt that he was stuck in Democrats' mental plantation, sort of alluding to being a slave of Democrats, or brainwashed perhaps. Mark and Patricia McCloskey, these were the people on their estate where the husband's holding the rifle and the woman comes out with a pistol because the marchers walked in. Apparently that street was a private road within that estate, although from video footage it kind of made it look like it was a public street, and so this led to a lot of outrage, and anyway, it's become extremely politicized. I'm just going to say what they said. They came on to say that people rioting and protesting and looting are Marxists walking in the streets, and they're trying to take over Congress. They give an example of somebody who was one of the leaders of these protests who decided to run for Congress and now got a nomination for the Democratic Party. Steve Scalise, Minority Whip in the House, he's a Republican, came up to speak. I didn't take many notes on him. Sean Parnell said that hedge funds, professors, and celebrities hate the middle class. And I wrote this down because it seems like Republicans are trying to paint this as a war for the middle class. Who's going to win the middle class? Is it going to be Democrats or is it going to be Republicans? And then painted Democrats as being too far left, too radical, and not patriotic. Maximo Alvarez says that America is the land of opportunity. Trump may not always be politically correct, but he's a family man and a friend. And what we are doing is we are fighting American communism. And he sort of compared potential American communism to Cuba's communist regimes. Nikki Haley said that socialism everywhere has failed. Communism is bad. COVID came from communist China. Communism is bad. Cancel culture is bad, racism and hate are bad, and schools should be chosen by the parent. Now, this comes up again later, and there's an interesting premise here, so hold that thought when we get to, actually, I'm pretty sure it's Donald Trump Jr., and he's next. Donald Trump Jr. came up and said that America is the land of promise and opportunity. You can kind of see how some of these start overlapping. We're seeing the American dream happen, he says. The Chinese Communist Party brought this to us, the virus. Trump banned travel from China, and Democrats criticized him for that. They're trying to sneak in a tax cut for millionaires, Manhattan millionaires, he says. He's referring to the SALT tax deduction, the state and local tax deduction. But they're mad at our payroll tax cut, which was passed through the executive order that Donald Trump instituted. Biden wants illegal immigrants to come in. Trump's policies are rocket fuel to the economy. Biden is the swamp. He's the Loch Ness monster of the swamp who raises or pokes up his head every so often to run for president and then crawls back into the swamp. The left wants to cancel our past. The radical left says we can't go to church. And it seems like what we have instead here is church, school, and work versus rioting, looting, and vandalism. their version of peaceful protests. That's from Donald Trump Jr. He goes on to say that anarchists are now taking over and that Democrat mayors are failing their cities. And the last thing we could do is defund the police to where if we dial 911, we go to voicemail. Minorities, this was the school part. This was actually interesting. It says minorities should not be stuck in bad schools because of their zip codes. This sort of opens the door to saying, well, we should have school of choice. And in part, this makes sense because poverty tends to concentrate in poorer areas. And then you basically have poorer going to poorer schools and more people go in those areas and the school quality goes down and down and down. And this is sometimes why people believe that there is a wealth gap in the country, partially because of lower quality schooling in poorer areas, and maybe school of choice would change that. Not trying to take sides on that, just wanted to give a little bit of detail on that. This is mostly because I've talked a lot about poverty on this channel. Then they moved on to a clip of two millennial minorities, two Hispanic gals, and they assaulted AOC and said that she is too far left. She represents an assault on capitalism. We can't innovate with overregulation and taxation, and we aren't going to depend on the government. We want to rely on the American dream. Tim Scott came up and said, they, Democrats, want a socialist nation. Tim then went on to say that we're actually better off with tax cuts that help the middle class, not Manhattan millionaires, which is what Biden wants. Again, referring to that SALT tax deduction. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris want a cultural revolution, he says. They want a socialist utopia that leads to pain and misery for the people trying to rise. Okay, now we're going to get to some Democrats' reactions. Those were my notes from the RNC, and these are some Democrats' reactions. Early at the RNC, by the way, they talked about being very successful against COVID, and Sanjay Gupta says it's propaganda. We had to import KN95s from China because we didn't have enough PPE. And we still don't have enough testing. This is why testing has gone down. We're seeing about 600,000 tests per week being conducted, down from about 900,000. Nancy Pelosi tweeted, if Trump gets his way, the promise of Social Security will be shattered by 2023. I will say Donald Trump, and I'm not trying to play fact checker here, but Donald Trump has come out and said they don't plan to defund Social Security. That money would just come from the general fund, which basically means it would be funded the way any tax cut gets funded. You have a payroll tax cut, because that's what she's referring to. She's like, hey, if Trump has a payroll tax cut, that takes money away from Social Security, and that's going to kill Social Security by 2023. Now, I do just want to clarify this, and not trying to take sides, but the Trump administration has said many times that they don't plan to let their payroll tax cut defund Social Security. Instead, they're just going to pay for the tax cut by making cuts in the budget elsewhere, or by borrowing more money, basically taking it from the general fund. So they don't plan to take money out of Social Security. They would just pay for the Social Security benefits some other way. Joe Biden says on Twitter that Trump is unfit to serve. He ended up showing a montage of Ted Cruz saying, and this must have been early in like 2015 or 16, Ted Cruz saying that Trump lies practically every word that comes out of his mouth. Lindsey Graham saying he's a kook and unfit to serve. Marco Rubio said that he thinks Trump is unfit for office. This is where you could actually see that tweet. And again, these were all sort of old campaign slogans when these people were running against Trump back in 2016. But if we scroll down, then we'll also see this message here where they put up Donald Trump and sort of compare COVID cases in South Korea and England and some of these other countries that have been very successful to the United States, where the United States is sort of ticked up while those have gone down. You know, I have to say those are probably cherry-picked countries, but I think you get the idea here. So that's sort of the overview that I got from night one on the RNC. I'm sure there are a lot of other things that I didn't take notes on that happened, but I figured, hey, why not just kind of give you my summary? And if you like this, I could do it again for the other nights. So let me know in the comments. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching. Check out the programs down below as well if you want to learn how to make money investing in real estate or stocks, or you want to learn how to make YouTube videos quickly, efficiently, and be able to profit from them. Check out the programs linked down below. Use that coupon code, and folks, we'll see you next time.